Welcome
Oh
to
man, why
the
didn't you
Super,
warn me you were going to do that?
Welcome to the Super Reality Podcast. We are talking about the Winners at War finale, where we crowned Tony Vlachos the winner of Survivor 40. With me today is Cassie, and live from Jeff's garage, we have JC. How's it going, guys?
It's going great, just enjoying the week and the weekend. Really happy we had 3 hours of Survivor content this week. It's like what I've been craving. So the 3 hours was great. It did not feel too long to me. I was just generally really happy with the outcome, and I'm excited to chat with you guys about it.
3 hours was almost overwhelming. Not because sitting down and watching the episode was perfect, but sitting down and watching the episode and then going back today to mentally prepare for the podcast, it was a lot. I mean, that's not 6 hours, but with commercials, that's 6 hours of watching to do just to prep for this. So it was almost a little too much.
Yeah, and I watched, some of the Ponderosas and the Jury Speaks videos, and so we really had almost 5 hours of content altogether. But
Yeah.
guys, thought this finale was fantastic. It's one of the best finales in recent memory. I think the original Edge of Extinction season 38 had a great finale, but it was kind of up and down. Whereas this one, I felt like the whole time was fantastic. Did you guys enjoy the finale overall? Were you disappointed with any of it?
Like I said, I really enjoyed it. I thought, it was fast paced and exciting. And I think we had a good mix of strategy talk throughout the episode while still having kind of those tender personal moments, with Sarah and Tony and things like that. Yeah, I agree that the Edge of Extinction in season 38 was a great finale, but I feel there I was a little bit conflicted because I was I don't know how I feel about somebody coming back from the Edge and winning.
Oh yeah.
Versus here, I feel you could easily sit here and root for Tony, or I think Tony's played a great game this whole season, so it was cool because you could kind of root for him and see how he was going to get through, kind of a difficult couple of votes there.
Yeah, and we'll talk about where Tony kind of sits in the rankings in our minds, but I kind of think that this is one of, if not the best game of all time that Tony played this season, considering the field that he played against. But yeah, starting from the beginning, we start out, of course, in Jeff's garage where JC is sitting now. He broke into Jeff's garage, he stole the set, all of that. But
that is how that works. Yes,
that is how that works. And then we start with the Edge of Extinction comeback challenge. JC, you're our resident challenge expert. What do you think about this challenge?
So going back and watching, and I really dug into the challenges. I think so. Take how long the challenge plays out on the screen. I spent 3 times that much physically watching the challenges today, and it was Wendell's game to lose. Yep. If Natalie hadn't had her advantages, Wendell would have won. Some fun little tidbits about it. Amber made it through the knots as Natalie was winning, give or take. It's really hard to line up the shots, but the way they edited it, you can see Amber finishing her knots, and then immediately after that is when Natalie won. Adam, oh man, poor Adam. He was in the background of 2 players who had a legitimate chance. He was in the background for, I think, Wendell and Tyson. Definitely Tyson. So you can see him struggling to build his bridge. And I don't know what happened because Adam's not a bad challenge player. He's not a challenge beast, but he's not a bad challenge player. So seeing him struggling on that bridge just shows you how little nourishment he had on Edge, and how the other players weren't really sharing that peanut butter with him. He was struggling. Danny doesn't make it through the knots, and then Nick Wilson, I cannot for sure 100% say he did not make it through the knots, but at no point in time do you see his table maze move. In the background of many shots, you can see it at the full tilt up in the air, not touched. So it looks like Nick did not make it through the knots section.
Yeah, well, you went back and rewatched the challenges many times. I skipped over them, so I don't actually remember who all had advantages. But did Wendell have any advantages going into the challenge, or no?
Wendell, Parvati, and Yul all had one stage advantage. They did not have to do most of the knot section, and it's really it's a shocker how Natalie immediately, the first thing she did was went backwards on the rope by accident. And that's why you see her struggling so much, because she gets through about, if you unravel the rope, she gets through about 2 feet of rope catches herself not in the right spot and has to undo what she just did and do the last peg, the last pull of rope. So it's the hunger gets the players, no matter how good they are.
Well, even aside from that, like I'm one of those people, like when I have adrenaline going and I'm like in the zone, like I just have to like turn my brain off and just like let my body do the work. Because if I stop and think about what I'm doing, like holding that tangle of rope, I'd be like, oh wait, which way am I going? Am I going this way? And I would just get confused instantly. So starving or not, I totally like felt for Natalie in that moment because she was just totally just like took herself out of it for a minute.
Absolutely.
Now,
I mean,
when
you could see her when
Go ahead, Cassie.
I was just going to say, you could see her, you know, when they were panning over all the players before the challenge started. You could kind of see her, like the way that she was acting kind of reminded me of like the way that I would act before, like I was about to dive in for like a race for swimming or something. Like she was sitting there, she was focused, she was like breathing really deeply. Like you could tell that she, you know, felt a lot of pressure going into this challenge. And I think especially at the beginning, couple of stages of this, you could definitely see that play out. Because I mean, she had been waiting for, you know, 35 days for this. I mean, she'd been waiting a long time to potentially get back in.
And she says that in her final tribal speech. She says just how nervous she was for the Edge challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any more comments on this challenge, JC?
I was going to ask, in any of your live games, and I'm really going to try to not divert today because we have so much to cover, but in any of your live games, did you do a rope untangling challenge?
You know, it's funny you say that because the challenge that like made me lose the first live game that I played in, it was the last challenge was played in 3 rounds. And the second round, there was like, you know, those kind of like crates that have holes in them, like the little like plastic crates that like milk sometimes comes in. Mm-hmm. So there was like a flag sitting at the bottom of one of those, and there was like a ton of ropes and everything tied around it, and you had to get the flag first, and whoever like would get the flag would move on to the next round. And I misunderstood it and thought that we had to untangle all of the ropes. And so I lost the challenge.
That's awful.
Yeah, I like ended up losing the game by virtue of like not understanding the rules of the challenge.
That sucks.
But I'm trying to think if there was anything like there may have been like components of like undoing knots, but overall I would say like it wasn't like a huge factor like it would have been like in this challenge where it was like a main part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and you have to have somebody that is like knows how to tie knots. You know what I mean? You have to have somebody on the production that can, you know, do that well.
Definitely. Right. So yeah, Wendell almost made it. Tyson almost made it, and in the end, Natalie pulled it out. It's really interesting going back and watching just how many times they pan to Natalie messing up. You very rarely see a player who wins a challenge stumbling multiple times in their edit. Mm-hmm. But she like on the rope bridge twice, on her knots once, and on being tied to the rope once. You see her making a fumble, and so having that be in there as just a deterrent to her winning the challenge is a really interesting editing choice.
Well, I think
for an episode that has such little time.
Right. I mean, I think because she came in with 3 advantages, she had time to spare. I mean, it's clear if she didn't have even one of those challenges, if she just had 2 instead of 3, I don't think that things would have played out the way that they did.
Definitely.
Yeah, it was so funny that like Wendell was in the lead the whole time because I had just been joking with people about like who the Edge of Extinction person might be because pretty much everybody thought like it's going to be Natalie or Tyson. Maybe there's, you know, an outside shot of somebody else. But like one of the people I'd been joking about coming back in was Wendell just because his edit was minimal throughout the season. And when he did have an edit, he was a villain. And so I'm like, obviously, like there's no chance in hell that Wendell is coming back based on the edit he had. Yeah. Granted, Chris Underwood in season 38, but even he had a better chance of coming back edit-wise than Wendell did. But yeah, so Natalie gets back in the game. I was excited just because I like her and she was the first boot, and I think everybody felt a little bit of sympathy for her. And she immediately does what I think is the obvious move. She immediately starts throwing Tony under the bus. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's like what you would expect her to do, right? Especially since she has been on the jury. It's not like it was a lie. I'm sure people on the jury, I mean, you hear Rob in like one of the more recent episodes talking about how much of a boss Tony is. You know, so I think for her, it wasn't even lying. It was just like telling everybody like the perspective that the jury has right now and kind of like trying to light a fire under people's butts to get them to make a move. Because for her, obviously, you know, she had the idol, and if she could evade the vote for, you know, the final tribal 6.2, I guess we can say, like she would have been guaranteed into the final 4. So I think that it was the straightforward move. It was interesting, the response to it, I thought, because you know, like Michelle talked to Sarah about how much of a threat Tony is and that like she couldn't beat Tony at the end. And Sarah just like brushed it right off. You would think Natalie coming in as a totally separate person saying the same thing would like make some people start to think and question, you know, their games and their perception or the jury's perception of them.
Yeah, for sure. And I am obviously that's like Sarah's biggest storyline throughout this episode is kind of talking about you know, why her game might not be considered as good as Tony's games from the jury's perspective, but it's also, and this is something I wish Sarah maybe would have kept in mind a little bit. Like Tony is, it's not just that he's a man; he's also just like a character. Like he is so out there, he's so extroverted, he's so much all of the time that like anybody by comparison is going to be seen as like lesser, even if it was another man. Like if Nick was in this final six, I mean, people wouldn't be taking Nick seriously either.
Right.
And I think that Sarah's game is purposely under the radar. Like I think that she doesn't want to be seen making moves all the time because her social game is so freaking good, guys. Like it's so good. Like everybody thinks that they are so good with Sarah. Like the fact that she didn't get votes in the final 6 or 5 until the revote, obviously in final 6, was pretty astounding. I think if I was Natalie, I might have. The only thing that I might have done differently is tell people one-on-one instead of telling everybody in a group. But I think that Natalie is the kind of player that just wants to seem super upfront and honest. So for her, it might just be better to just kind of get it all in the open. I don't have anything to hide. This is, you know, she likes to just have everything on the table for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my hot take at this point in the episode was that in a non-Edge season, pretend Natalie's not coming back, this is exactly where you vote out Tony. Having rewatched everything, it really struck with me. This is not the same as any All-Star season we have seen before. The Winners Club in Survivor is a real thing. These players have interacted with each other so heavily over the last decade that they are coming in with a completely different bond than a normal All-Star season would play. We had a couple of aggressive tendencies. I don't even want to say like players who were mad at each other or had vendettas to pull off. We had some people who were aggressive towards each other in a gameplay sense, but for the most part, everyone coming in on this cast is really good friends with one another, and it's not some like the level of compassion both Ben and Lucina showed towards Tony is not something we're going to get replicated in a future All-Star. Not ever, but in the next several All-Star seasons, we're not going to have this bond. And so in a normal season, this is where you turn around and get Tony out immediately. But we're not playing a normal season. We're playing a season where people are playing with their best friends. And it completely warps how Survivor should be played, ironically enough.
Yeah, you talking about that just reminds me of like, you know, talking about prior relationships and how emotional it is. It reminds me of All-Stars, but in All-Stars, it was just like everybody was mad when their allies would betray them. Whereas in this season, even if, you know, your ally betrays you, like it's not really hard feelings, but the allies that stay until the end are like super emotionally attached to each other. So we kind of just get a short segment of them back at camp. Then we go right into the next immunity challenge. There are basically just obstacles, so they have to, this is the first one where they have the water slide, they have to retrieve bags, and then they have to do the 3-tiered puzzle, which Michelle had won previously, and she ultimately wins it again.
It wasn't even close.
Killed it at this puzzle. Like Michelle was so far behind the entire challenge. Like Tony was up by the puzzle. Tony and Natalie were up by the puzzle while Michelle had like one bag turned in. I mean, like it was not even close for the first half of the thing. And then Michelle just came in and immediately put together the puzzle. It was like incredible to watch.
Yeah, Jeff was putting so much focus on Michelle during the challenge. I'm like, it's making me think that she's going to come back and win this, but surely she's so far behind. Like she is so far behind, and none of these people are bad at puzzles as far as where Ben's never won a challenge before, but like, you know, Sarah is notoriously good at puzzles, I think.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, Sarah's decent at puzzles. I don't think Tony, I just picture Tony with like slide puzzles and stuff when he's just like frantically moving things around and like not working.
Like a frantic puzzle.
Right, exactly. So I was like, I don't know. I feel like Tony is like a smart guy, but I don't know if I see him as being like a big puzzle person. But I didn't think Natalie, like I thought with Natalie how much of a lead she had on Michelle. like that she would at least have a chance. And we know Sarah's decent at puzzles. It was just in general a great showing by Michelle, and I think really shows the power of like kind of the human psyche. I mean, like the fact that like she won now 2 immunity challenges in a row when she was like on the bottom and may have gone home, I think was really impressive to see.
For sure.
So this puzzle in particular, it was actually really hard watching the players play this puzzle, and I understand how mentally drained they are. But when you're making 6 stacks and players are stacking them in only 2s when there are clearly more than 12 pieces, it was actually really hard to watch this one. I love the pre-puzzle. I love the the dressing, the window dressing that they have. The physical component of challenges are just kind of there to look cool, and then the puzzle is the equalizer. But on this one, I don't know. It really, this is one of those physical challenges that I think could have been more than window dressing, and it wasn't, because the puzzle was that good of an equalizer this time.
Yeah. I love seeing a challenge with the water slide also. Like, who doesn't love a water slide in the challenge?
Totally. It was funny, like a couple of times people like slid literally like back to back where they were almost like running into each other down the slide.
Yeah, I feel like Denise was always like super like crossed her arms, like straight as an arrow. Like Denise like never was like flailing out of control. She was always just like, Denise, composed, calm, cool, Denise.
And then you have Ben, who ends up going down the water slide backwards.
Yeah. I would be scared because like I'm scared of tall water slides in general, but like I would be scared that I'd be like spinning out of control and fall off the side and like I get netted back to final 6. Like that would suck so bad.
Yeah, I feel like I would,
how you go down a water slide is indicative of how you play the game of Survivor.
Yeah, then in that case Ben should have just fallen off, right?
Oh no.
Any more comments on this challenge, guys?
No.
Okay.
Oh man, it's a challenge I would love to play. It has a great puzzle. It has the high ropes course element or low ropes course, and it has a water slide. Let me play this challenge, please.
Seriously.
Yeah, I would love this challenge. So after this, I think we get one of the most infuriating, most talked about parts of the episode. Tony says it's better to assume that Natalie has an idol, because if you don't assume, like what you're going to ignore is going to nip you in the bud, which I felt like personally attacked by, because I like to ignore all my problems. But so do Ben and Sarah. Apparently they were just like not having it with Tony thinking that Natalie had an idol. They're like, I know for a fact she doesn't. Sarah says, Natalie would have told me because we've built a bond since she's been here. Like, girl, you have known her for a day. I don't even think they've probably even met before. And it's like, Sarah thinks that her read on Natalie is just like perfect. And I'm like, you have a good social game, Sarah, but you are not like freaking God.
I think it like kind of was indicative of like Sarah's whole game this season, where I think Sarah played a good game. Don't get me wrong. Like I think Sarah played a good game.
Second best game of the season, I think.
Yeah. But I think like she thinks she played a better game than she did. I guess, especially if you're like going up against Tony, like with like all of Tony's antics and like kind of coming out even with that like getting to the finals with all of that baggage that he came in with. I just think in general Sarah like overplayed her hand a little bit, where she was like, no, Natalie, there's no way. Like Natalie, I would just know because Natalie would have told me. Like I just think she like wasn't always I don't know if like having enough like humility. Like she just like thought for sure she like knew what was going on, and she like didn't. Obviously, like us in the audience knew that she did not think the correct thing. It was like absolutely maddening. I was surprised. I guess like this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but when I was watching the episode, I was thinking in my head, like, Tony, if you think that she has an idol, then maybe like you just need to throw a rogue vote. So if she has an idol and you have an idol and you both play it, like you can choose who goes home versus like having somebody be voted out by Michelle and Natalie. Like even if Michelle and Natalie like split their votes on 2 different people, you could still like cause a tie where at a revote, you would have the final say. I was like I was a little surprised that he didn't do that. Like I was a little surprised that it was 4 strong on Natalie.
Yeah, I think he probably just assumed correctly that like Michelle and Natalie were going to vote together, because surely Michelle and Natalie are thinking that they might have some kind of other antics, like Tony might split the vote 2-2-2 or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's totally crazy. And I just, One of my favorite episodes of all time in Survivor is the Kageon merge, where like Sarah thinks she's the swing vote between two alliances, and ultimately like Cass is the one to vote her out. But
Yeah.
during that whole episode, I mean, it was just like peak Sarah cockiness of like, I'm President Sarah, like I'm running this tribe, I get to decide what happens, and I'm just like, dang, they really did her dirty on this one. Like it was
Seriously.
like the exact same thing, and that's just like a theme with Sarah. And don't get me wrong, like I love Sarah, and I think she's like a top 10 Survivor player. But
Absolutely.
she has a theme of being cocky. You know, in her pregame interviews, she was really cocky. Every time I heard her talk about her game and Game Changers, like on podcasts and interviews and stuff, very cocky. And it's not just like a gender thing. Like there's plenty of guys that I think are way too high on their Survivor games, Boston Rob being one of them. But like, yeah, Sarah has to be one of the cockiest Survivor players in my mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's see. So Natalie ends up telling Michelle about her idol, and it turns out they know that Tony has an idol. I think that he had mentioned at a tribal council, and he offered to play it for Sarah. But I did love seeing like Michelle like have a glimmer of hope of like, I'm not on the bottom. Like I have an ally, I have immunity, and my ally has an idol. It was just a good moment for Michelle, and I love seeing those two come back together after the day one relationship comes all the way to fruition on like day 36.
Totally. Yeah, it was great to see, like you said, like Michelle almost having like a renewed chance in this game. For the last couple of rounds, she's felt like she was like the easy vote off, like on the bottom, and she like now for the first time in a while we've seen her have hope, which was nice to see.
Yeah, we see Ben saying that he will not turn on Denise. He said he learned from the first time that he has to care more about the human aspect of the game, and like Denise is his friend. And obviously that will come even more into play in the second round. I have mixed feelings on Ben, but I just want to see what you guys think about him not being willing to split the vote. Because I don't know that it's like a 100% terrible move for him to not vote for Denise.
So if we had a live finale, this and actually also the scene where Tony is insisting she has an idol, both wouldn't have made the final cut. We wouldn't have gotten either of those scenes because they would have used that time for a live finale. I think those are pretty easy scenes to cut out. And the players have to have known that, yeah, even if she plays an idol, we're still getting Denise out.
Yeah.
Like, maybe we lose Sarah. It's a potential. But it really sounds like Michelle wants to work with Sarah. So, yeah, Denise is who we're voting out if she has an idol. And if she doesn't have an idol, well, she's going home. But there's no need to split the vote. And there's no need for Ben to put Denise's name down as a split vote because even if she plays an idol, Denise is going home either way. So he gets to play up this friendship card, even like because it's not two paths that diverge, idol path, not idol path. It's that like Denise is going if there's an idol. Sorry, I should reiterate. There are the two paths, idol path, not idol path, but on the idol path, there aren't the Sarah path and Denise path. There's only the Denise path.
Yeah, so, but in that same token, though, I think this is where we like disagree a little bit. In that same token, if Denise was going to be the vote, if Natalie played an idol, why not just split the votes so that way you don't have to like. I mean, they blew two idols this round. Like Tony and Ben both had to play their idols. I think, yeah, you're right. Like if idols, like if they had extra idols or whatever else, or they know exactly who their vote was going on, so that way they would only have to play one of their two idols, that would be fine. But I think for me, I understand why Ben didn't do it because I don't think Ben has a great chance against Tony or Sarah for that matter. Like in the end, like I don't think he has a great chance against anyone, to be honest.
Well, but he wasn't playing to win, so I don't even. I mean, to me, I think it was literally just he didn't want to vote for Denise, and that was it. I think at this point he had decided Denise and Sarah, I'm not going to vote them out no matter what. And maybe he felt that way about Tony too. I don't know.
I guess I'm just surprised that like in that case, even if like Ben said no, like I'm a little bit surprised that Tony and Sarah wouldn't have gone rogue and just thrown two votes on Denise, because in that case, like then Tony doesn't have to play his idol. Maybe Ben blows his idol because he doesn't know about that split plan, whatever. But you really save yourself. The problem was that Sarah was so cocky. She like also didn't think Natalie had an idol. I just feel like might as well be safe. And like if Natalie doesn't play an idol, then like it doesn't matter that you split the vote. Maybe you like isolated Denise a little bit, but I don't know. Like it doesn't seem like they care that much about Denise's alliance.
Yeah, and I think it's way worse for me from Sarah's perspective than Ben's, mostly because like I don't think that Ben's motivation is to win, so I don't even like necessarily like what his moves are almost like irrelevant to what his motivation of the game is.
Right.
But yeah, I do think it was definitely a huge misstep for Sarah. So ultimately, and I think the biggest problem for Tony is that like Tony just didn't want an idol to get re-hidden because he wanted security at 5, and he also didn't want to have like another variable in the equation at 5 that Natalie and Michelle can ultimately have the idol, which is exactly what happened.
Right.
But yeah, so ultimately we go to tribal council and we get 3 idols played, and on the revote, Denise goes home. I did not think that this was the correct decision for Natalie and Michelle. First of all, to even vote for Ben in the first place, but then after that, to vote out Denise on the revote instead of Sarah when it would have gone to fire. Like, that was crazy to me.
Absolutely.
I think so many people played. I think Sarah, Michelle, and Natalie like all played this round completely wrong.
Agreed.
Definitely.
I mean, if they had gotten Sarah out there and then gotten Tony out, literally they could have kept Ben around until 4 to beat Tony at fire, like whatever, you know, like you have more chances to get rid of Tony if you just played his idol. Like it's bonkers to me. Like if you had gotten rid of Sarah and Tony at 6 and 5, and then at 4 gotten rid of like Ben or Denise or even Michelle if you're Natalie, like I don't know. Like I feel like either Michelle or Natalie have a much higher chance at winning than I'm with you. I was like completely mind blown and like baffled by this. I do not think it was the right call.
Well, I think even next round, it's even way worse of a move what they do next round. But I guess for this round, I just don't feel like we have enough information. Like, I want to know from the Edge of Extinction people, who did they see as a bigger threat, Denise or Sarah? Because to me, Denise just hasn't had a big edit this season, but like we have no idea what they're saying about her on the Edge of Extinction. Who knows? I think the whole like Sandra vote out thing is like they're making it into a bigger deal than it is. Like to me, that wasn't even that good of a move. It was just like an epic moment. But yeah, we have no idea what they were saying about our Edge of Extinction, so I'm going to kind of withhold judgment too much for Natalie and Michelle on this, but obviously the next vote, it's way worse. But we also have in this tribal council Shara's whole thing about Natalie coming back was a blessing for her because it showed that there is some gender bias in the jury. Cassie, I'll go to you since you're the girl on the panel. What did you think about Sarah and her like gender bias speech? Do you think it was 100% sincere? Do you think it was a mix of sincerity and gameplay?
I think it was definitely a mix of sincerity and gameplay. I think, you know, like if she senses that the jury is leaning more towards Tony, obviously she's going to start, you know, trying to pull some strings in order to get some more votes on her, especially those where like, you know, I mean, it is accurate that women win Survivor far less than men do. Like a lot of times when women make moves that like men, I think, are perceived as being like big moves and like threatening. I think sometimes like women get a bad reputation. So, I mean, I definitely understand what she was saying, and I was like all on board with the stuff that she was saying. I don't think it's totally applicable here with like, you know, like Tony versus Sarah. I mean, Tony just played like an epic game. I think, you know, like generally that can be true with Survivor. And I mean, up until recent seasons, like women were far less likely to find advantages and idols and, you know, everything else. Like just statistically speaking, like women are a lot less likely to do well in Survivor. So, I mean, it was nice to like shed some light on that. But I think, you know, for Sarah, I don't really think it was super applicable with the Tony situation. And I also just think like it must have been a little bit gameplay with the timing of that, you know what I mean? Like it was right after Natalie came back and kind of like threw some shade at Tony, or not shade at Tony. I mean, like saying that he's gonna win if he makes it to final tribal, which you know he did. Like she was
almost more shade at the jury for thinking that Tony was playing a better game in a way.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I have mixed feelings about it. I think like in general, it was nice to draw attention to that fact, but I just think it was like a little bit misplaced here.
Yeah, I think this could have been like a final tribal council speech rather than something that she said at tribal council. But I do think that she also was really working on her bond with Natalie, and like she was almost like indirectly complimenting Natalie in that speech. So I don't know if that was helping her build a relationship, even though she ultimately votes for Natalie at this vote.
Right.
Yeah, do you have any thoughts?
Jury management. You know?
Yeah.
I think that this jury in general is like less bitter than we've seen juries be in the past. I think because people were playing with friends. So, you know, if she doesn't have a great relationship with Natalie going into it, maybe she's like padding it up a little bit more. Even if she sends her home, she could, you know, have a relationship with her to where perhaps she gets her jury vote.
That's true. Yeah. Any thoughts, JC, on this tribal council?
So in college, I wrote a paper where I was debunking. So it was a stats paper, but I used Survivor to write the paper, and it was debunking the fact that any trait has is a legitimate advantage towards winning Survivor. And at the time I wrote the paper, gender was not a statistically significant factor. There was a close enough. It wasn't 50-50, but there was a close enough to 50% balance between genders that being male was not an advantage towards winning Survivor. Um, it only looking at the numbers. But that was, I want to say, like right after Michelle won. Maybe it might have been pre 32, it might have been post 32. But then we got the whole series of the 30s, where I think we had 3 female winners to 7 male winners, something like that. And if you ran the numbers right now, you probably see that being male does have a significant factor in winning. And I mean, when you only have 40 winners, especially with Tony being factored in here, sorry, 39 winners, Sandra. With Tony being factored in here, it really does show that it's at the moment, and it's a pendulum. It'll swing back. We'll have a string of female winners again in the future, probably. But at the moment, yeah, it looks like being male is a huge advantage, and that's not. It's something as a future player that benefits me, but it's not something as a viewer/analyzer that I'm proud of. It's not something that really indicates an amazing game.
Yeah, I know through like the first 20 seasons of Survivor, I think it was 50-50. Then, we had a few male winners, but we also had like, Sophie, Kim, and Denise win back to back to back. But yeah, the 30s were super dry as far as female winners. I know the last 3 female winners were Sarah, Michelle, and Natalie, and those were the last 3 people remaining in this game. But Natalie's win was season 29.
Right.
So that means we only had 2 female winners in the entirety of the 30s, which is pretty sad.
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't know. It's like a little bit disheartening. Obviously, like being a woman, like I love Survivor, would love to like have the chance to play, and it's like a little bit of a bummer that that's the case. It'll be interesting to see, like when the pendulum swings the other way, and like what kinds of players. I mean, I think like in general with Survivor, you kind of have these different like eras, like even like pre-Immunity Idol. Like you look at like Ethan's win, and that was like basically based off of like he was like a nice, likable guy, and people like thought he was trustworthy, so they voted for him. It's not like Ethan was like the most strategic player. It's not like he was like a big strategy guy. Versus now, obviously, if you do that, if you're just like this nice, likable player, then you're kind of a goat that's gets brought to the end sometimes. But a lot of times,
unless you're Tommy.
Either. Yeah, true. Yeah. So, I mean,
that was a good season.
I think it's in general like it's tough that's the case, but I think like shedding some light on it is nice. I also think like you mentioned, JC, that it's like not like great for the game, obviously, if like we've had 2 female winners in the last 10 seasons. But I do think it's sometimes like Survivor does do a good job at like reflecting real world problems, and I think that it does shine light on the fact that sometimes women are looked over for like their male counterparts, like in the workplace or whatever else. So yeah, that's all I have to say. I'll get off my soapbox now.
It's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is, because if you go back and like think about fire making challenges, like maybe Chrissy got robbed of a win in Triple H. But other than that, and maybe in this season, but other than that, I can't think of how the fire making challenge specifically screwed the woman out of winning, where the woman wouldn't have been voted out anyway. Like I'm thinking like Lauren last season probably would have won, but she would have been voted out anyway at 4.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not just the fire making twist, and women are finding a lot more advantages lately. So it's not even that. I don't know exactly what the factor is, but I think it's something that production is aware of. They want to have more female winners. So hopefully that's something that they can analyze for future seasons. And it's not a lack of strong female players either. Like we've had some really great female players in the past few seasons.
Yeah. I mean, I think the fact that the 3 female winners were 3 out of the last 4 people standing in this, season just shows like how strong and how good these players can be when you have like 3 out of 4 women in the finals, and those 3 women were like the 3 most recent winners. It's interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Legitimately,
Go ahead.
Legitimately, it could even be that they are casting stronger women overall, which is making those women more of a threat, and they're getting voted out earlier than they would have been if they weren't as strong. I'm looking at Sydney, Missy, not Missy. Although Missy was pretty strong physically. Michaela.
Yeah.
That was. I apologize, both Missy and Michaela, for mixing you up. That was not cool of me. But yeah, Michaela twice. She clearly showed she was super into the game, good at challenges, and it really bit her both times. Like, being a strong player puts a target on you, and we've got these strong, physically strong, but also socially strong women that are playing their hands a little too big and a little too quickly, and they're catching up on the curve of being a strong player and not getting yourself targeted.
Yeah. And to be fair, the season that Sydney and Michaela played in, they both had female winners. Not Michaela's first season, but on Game Changer, Sarah won, and on Sydney's season, Michelle won.
Michelle.
Yeah. The last thing I have to say about this is I'm a huge Cass McEwen fan from Cagayan. I noticed she put something about how in her season, she had multiple times that she had talked about how women are seen as bitch and backstabbing and kind of evil if they play the game like a man does. And it was just her kind of pointing the finger at Sarah, saying on my season, you hated my guts for voting you out, even though because I betrayed you, and now you're the one saying don't be calling women names for playing a hard game. Which I appreciated that, because it was yeah, Sarah, this is not, it's not like something Sarah hasn't heard before. Cass was beating this drum Cagayan multiple times. So justice for Cass.
Yeah.
I would love to see Cass play a third time.
I know, and she doesn't really want to. She feels like she has nothing to prove. But I'm just do it for me, Cass. I love you so much.
I don't blame her at all.
Yeah.
I don't blame her for not wanting to come back. I don't blame Spencer for not wanting to come back. They've had their storylines. I get it.
And as we've seen, and as we talked about a couple tribal councils ago, the game takes a huge toll on you, and it's hard to get over. Yeah. So let's see. Going into the next round, Tony is up literally all night idol searching, which I'm just so impressed that he can operate on literally no sleep. I could never. And ultimately, I'm sure it was super frustrating for him watching this back, but Natalie finds it not having searched all night. Yeah, but I just admire Tony's dedication to finding the idol.
I mean, just even the balls on him to be going in the woods, basically setting all of these fires in the woods and sticking his hands at night into crevices and cracks.
I know.
We've seen all of the nature shots that are stunning, but of the snakes slithering around and the huge spiders. You can't see if you're about to walk into a gigantic spider nest or spider web. You're just gonna walk into it and have spiders all over you. He really, really worked hard.
I'm just thinking, now is everybody going to do this? Is this going to be the new thing where people just don't sleep on Survivor anymore, and everybody is spending all night looking for idols? Because I do think people are going to be doing this now. I guarantee you, every single season, whether they show it or not, people are going to be up at night searching for idols. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because there is a human element. People might try every now and then to search for idols at night, but I certainly don't think it's going to be a super frequent occurrence. I think that there are enough people on Survivor that feel if they, get even less sleep than they're getting now, I think it's going to be hard to operate and function. And having a functional mind is probably in a lot of cases more useful than having an idol in the game.
Yeah, Tony's a special breed for sure.
Right. Tony's nuts. I can't imagine what it's in his brain.
Yeah.
I'd appreciate the pendulum swinging back towards you have to have a clue to get an idol. It's not hidden in the woods where you can go looking for it. Keep hiding idols at challenges. Hide an idol at tribal council, and not in a place where you can see it, but in a place where you physically have to have the clue to be able to possibly know it's there. Do stuff like that.
How do you, what would be the way that they get the clue? Would the clue just be hidden somewhere in the forest, or would you get a clue on rewards? How would you suggest putting clues into the game?
I'm a fan of clues being part of rewards.
I am too.
Honestly, yeah. If you wanna hide a clue in the forest, fine. But the Russell Hantz method of finding idols needs to be nipped in the bud for a couple of seasons. Players need to have the ability to just happen upon them taken away for a while, and that will cause future players to look less, to really rely on more of a social game. And that's not something that producers want at all. That, like, they want flashy, they want idols played. So what we want as game viewers, like as true, like, real fans and analysts, is not what production wants at all.
Well, yeah, it's hard because you go to the casual Facebook page and all of them are outraged that Natalie didn't win the game, and I'm like, so glad that, 100% real. So many people thought that, like, Natalie should have won the game. And I'm like, what world are we living in? Why?
Well, even like that girl that Pat was casually talking to that was like a big fan of Ben, but like I don't understand. I don't get it. I sincerely don't.
And I personally think, like, it is always, for me, a fantastic TV moment when we used to go on rewards, like, somebody would have to, like, sneak the clue, like, into their pocket, or, like, there was a clue in plain sight and, like, you had to get people away in order to get the clue. And, like, we got that on Edge of Extinction with, like, Natalie getting the advantage underneath the shelter or whatever.
Right.
But, yeah, I'm thinking, like, heroes, villains, like, Danielle finds the clue, and then, like, Amanda, like, tries to wrestle her to, like, get the clue while they're, like, watching a movie and eating popcorn. I'm thinking of Australian Survivor, where there's clues or rewards a lot now. I love those moments. Those are, like, the moments where, like, I'm getting anxious watching, like, oh my gosh, are they going to get it? Are they going to go with it? Or are they going to get caught? That's so much fun, and we don't really get that anymore.
Give me another China Idol.
Yes, exactly. Philippines, the one who was on top of, like, the rice container, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I love stuff like that where there's a high risk of you getting caught. That's
right. Well, that also makes for good TV too. I feel like it's mutually beneficial as far as, like, production goes.
Sure, we can all get on board.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Going into the next immunity challenge, we have a series of obstacles. They have to basically swim to a ramp, walk on a balance beam to get a key. They have to crawl under a net, and then they have to land sandbags on a little platform. This was, to me, a little bit underwhelming for a finale challenge, but it didn't take that long, so I'm not mad at it. But JC, did this challenge measure up to the other two?
Not even close. This is not a Final 5 immunity challenge. This is a Final 7 or a Final 9 reward challenge. This is not what you want to be testing your players with. This
was lame.
I'm not mad about who won. Like, I don't care that Tony won a challenge.
Yeah, me either.
It's just not a good challenge.
Yeah.
I have nothing to say.
I was cracking up with Michelle where she was like, I think, like, because she had eaten shit previously on a challenge, like running across, like, a beam sort of thing. You remember that when she, like, fell on her face? She was, like, so afraid to get up from untying her key. Yeah. And this one, she was, like, super afraid. Like, you saw her for, like, a minute. Yeah. I mean, just, like, after she had untied her key, like, figuring out how she was going to get up, because I think she just didn't want to eat shit again on another balance beam. And I was cracking up. I feel you, Michelle, as a fellow clumsy person. But yeah, this challenge was pretty underwhelming, and yeah, enough said. We can move past it. Tony wins.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yep.
So we get a fun use of the spy nest, even though I feel like it didn't actually affect anything that happened. But basically, Tony wants to go open the nest while Sarah talks to Natalie and Michelle, even though we only get Natalie. And Sarah is, like, looking at Natalie's buff and's like, what do you have in there? And Natalie, like, reluctantly says something that's going to keep me safe. But then, like, Sarah ultimately draws it out of her to, like, show her the idol. And I'm like, Natalie, you should have just, like, left her guessing. Like, don't even show her the idol. Just, like, make her think that you might have it, or that you're just stuffing it to, like, make it fake. Like, just leave a little bit of intrigue.
Do we think Natalie intentionally had it on her wrist as, like, a thing that Sarah could speculate about? Like, do you think that was intentional? So. You think, like, she was literally just hiding it poorly in her buff?
Because I don't even think it was, like, that bulky looking. Like, it could have just been, like, a big thing of, like cloth, conceivably. But I don't, like, maybe I know that Sarah is a cop, so she's trained to look for bulges in clothing, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so somebody, like, sneaking drugs or something in a buff.
That's a buff on your arm.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'm trying to figure out what I've got that's idol-sized in my room real quick, but, like...
Something in the set behind you, JC.
Yeah.
Surely
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
something in
it's
Jeff's garage that's idol-sized.
definitely feasible that she was like hiding it there, but I wouldn't totally put it past her to have like planted it there. Maybe she didn't expect Sarah to like straight up ask her about it, but I wouldn't be surprised if she like gave it as something to like speculate about.
But if she just
But
wanted to
like,
speculate, then why
if I throw something like roughly idol sized in there, it still looks about the same level of bulky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a weird place to hide the idol because I think we've speculated that they have bags this season that nobody can look in, but maybe now that Fire Tokens is done, that's over too. That could be a thing. Yeah, I would never hide an idol on my person. Depending, like if I was one of those guys like Tony who has like cargo shorts on that you could like literally put a bowling ball in and nobody could tell. Other than that, there's no way that I'm putting an idol anywhere on my person if I'm on Survivor.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably put one like in my bra, maybe on the side, but like Natalie doesn't have like I don't know. It would have been obvious, I think, if Natalie like had put something in her bra.
Yeah, at this
But
point she's so skinny that
like,
there's not
like,
much to, you know.
It definitely depends
right,
on what
not
clothing.
much to hide behind.
Yeah, I'm like
Tony's cargo shorts, good strategic move.
Yeah, it's never talked about how much, production picks the clothing they ultimately wear on the island. And it's like never really talked about, some people get cargo shorts and a lot of the girls get like skin tight, like spandex shorts. And it's like, there's a little bit of difference in terms of like, where you're supposed to put an idol. Like if you're in the middle of the woods and you find one, like, what are you supposed to do if you're a girl? Like, I know some people put in their bras, but like some people don't have that much room in their bras to put an idol. Right. And it's like, I don't even know. That would be really hard. And so I'm like, if I'm ever on Survivor, please let me have like some like pockets.
That's funny.
Yeah. That's just another thing that Australian Survivor does better than US Survivor. Like, I get it. You're supposed to be stranded on an island after a plane crash, but like people would have luggage after a plane or a boat crash. They'd have they'd have a little bit of clothing to work with.
Yeah, I mean, we're 40 seasons in. Like, who's watching this to see people marooned on an island? Like, nobody's watching it to see anybody like survive with the clothes off their back. I hope.
Right.
No, they're watching to see girls in skimpy outfit. I didn't say that.
No.
There are definitely viewers that are watching for that.
Yeah.
Even in like I'm thinking of in like I think it was in One World maybe where it was like guys versus girls in the initial split and like one tribal council literally all the guys were just like objectifying all the women on the other tribe. Where Jeff's like, "What do you think of the other tribe?" And they're just like, "Oh, so and so's got a nice ass." You know?
Oh, they did that in Amazon. Absolutely. They were talking about like Jenna and Heidi and Shauna.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, you're not wrong there, JC. I don't think.
Yeah. And there's definitely really good eye candy for both genders that have been cast for Survivor. Yeah. But you don't have to force them into a swimsuit 24/7 to make light of that. Like you can give them a covering outfit that still looks good for both genders again. Like
right.
Yeah, either have everybody just in their underwear or give everybody a proper outfit. One
Please,
or the other.
No, we don't need more
you have like
Shepard
Nick out
underwear.
here in a fucking suit, and then like girls just have like spandex shorts and a sports bra.
Yeah, like Nick, can I have your jacket? Can I have your jacket? No.
I would literally never want to be like, could you imagine being like given a suit to wear on Survivor? Like Tony's given cargo shorts and you're given a suit with a blazer to wear. I mean, that's
I'm thinking like, isn't that Nick's blazer? Like that is his blazer that he sent into Survivor for his outfit. Like I don't think Survivor got this for him. So I'm like, I'm not ruining. I mean, I know they get paid to be on the show, but like, I'm not going to ruin like $100-$200 blazer in order to like be looking a certain way on Survivor. Like,
I would willingly ruin my best suit jacket, which is a really nice suit jacket. If that's what they requested. If that's what they requested,
I would too.
Like, clothing is replaceable. Yeah. That being said, I'm not going to send that in. Like, that's not the outfit I'm going to be like, hey, this is what I want to wear.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, they definitely told Nick to send in the blazer both times.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ultimately we get Sarah, Tony. So after Sarah sees the idol, her and Tony figure out, like, okay, like, we just have to vote Michelle. And then, like, as soon as Natalie tells Michelle that she told Sarah about the idol, Michelle is like, that sucks because now they're going to vote for me. And so you have to play the idol for me. And then we go back to Sarah and Tony and they're like, oh, but maybe now that Natalie knows that we know about the idol, we actually have to vote for Natalie because she might play the idol Michelle. I just love, like, the next level thinking that we get on a cast of all winners.
Totally.
They really are like on top of their shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Like fleshing out all the different options that could happen. That was fun. I thought that I don't know, when I thought Natalie was going to end up playing her idol for Michelle and then get booted. That was like what I was thinking might happen. Obviously that's not what happened, but when she played it on herself, I was like at least she's not going home for playing it on a different person.
Yeah, but ultimately, like, that's not even going to matter, because before that, we get something that I'm sure you guys will have a lot of thoughts on. Ben tells Sarah to vote him out for a resume point. He says, so you can say that you weren't just drug along, and friends are worth more than money. First of all, do you really think, Ben, that Sarah was the one drug along in this trio? Really? And also, like, you can have friends and money, because, like, I know that he probably is thinking that he can't win the game, but you get $100,000 if you get second place or maybe third place. I don't know exactly. I think it might be like
85,
80. Yeah. So I'm like, you should want to come home with more money, right?
Right.
But yeah, I'll throw it to you guys. What do you think about this Ben basically quitting but not quitting?
I mean, that was like a weird move for me as like a super competitive person. I know that you're like hungry and you're starving and, you know, like you care about these people and you want them to do well, but like I could not imagine just straight up like essentially giving up when you're so close. I mean, at that point, your final five, we know that he's good at fire. So like there's a decent chance that like he could have made it to final tribal if not for that move right there to have Sarah vote for him. I mean, Ben's bar is already pretty low in my mind, but like that was tough to see.
Yeah.
Ben's best bet from a gameplay standpoint at this point is to willingly work with Natalie and Michelle and turn on Sarah. If he's really trying to win.
Yeah.
That being said, Ben didn't come into the season trying to win. I mean, maybe he did. But much like Michelle really wanted to boost how her fan base sees her, Ben kind of came into the season to prove that he's a stand-up military gentleman who's here for his country and friends. And so Ben really was trying to show, yeah, like, I pledged loyalty to Tony and Sarah. I'm going down with the Tony and Sarah ship because it makes him look a lot better. He'll stop getting as much flack. Like, years later, he's still really getting a lot of hate from the Survivor community for his win. That wasn't his fault. I don't care for Ben as a player. I don't care for the game that he played in either of his two seasons. That being said, I'm sure he's a stand-up guy, and I'm not going to attack him for it. But I hated the fire-making twist being introduced in the way that it was. Every season since then, including the season that was filmed afterwards, but before Heroes, Healers, Hustlers aired, every single time they've said, hey, at Final Four, there's this fire-making challenge. But in his season, it was a twist, and as a twist, I didn't like it. No problem with Ben's win. It's the twist that I have the problem with. But a lot of people really had the problem with Ben's win. And so he came on the show. Yeah, $2 million would be great. But primary goal, let's improve my image in the Survivor community.
Right.
Yeah, but to me, what would make your image better is like playing a good game and like playing to win. And I get that, like, I feel conflicted because on one hand, I know that like mental health is a thing.
We're not Pat's lady friend.
We're not
casuals.
We're not. I just have conflicting feelings because on one hand, like, I think if you come into the game of Survivor and your goal is not to win, I personally don't want you to play. Like, I want to see 20 or 18 people who their goal is to win the game. So I don't like when people are there for like just an adventure, or like Ben says in Tribal Council, like he played this game for personal growth and to like make friends and to represent his family better and to like play a game that his family can be proud of. Like it's hard because like I want to validate other people's reasons for playing Survivor, but I personally don't want to watch somebody that's not playing to win. Like, this was just disappointing to see somebody that's in the final five. Like, not only do like newbies who have never had a chance to play Survivor like would just die to like get a chance to play the game, but also there was tons of winners that like wanted to be on this cast that we would have loved to see, that Ben took up one of their spots, and it's just like those people wanted to win, and Ben just gave up his spot at final five because he didn't want to have to like deal with being in the final three and losing. That's part of the game, dude. Like, you came here you should have come here to respect the game. And to me, this was just not acceptable.
Agreed.
Imagine Mike Holloway playing this season.
Oh, he's so hungry to play, guys. Like,
or Richard Hedges.
Yeah, Mike Holloway for me is like Ben stole his spot, and not that it's Ben's fault by any means, but like I personally think that Mike Holloway would have been. He's such compelling TV, and he wants it so bad, and he's so into Survivor. And other people I know I've mentioned that like Todd is probably the person that I was most disappointed to not see play. I'm a huge Todd fan.
I'd have loved Todd, but I'm glad he didn't come back.
Why?
I don't want to drag Todd through the mud, but he's had so much go on with his post-Survivor life that I really don't think Survivor would be good for him. I'm no mental health medical professional.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Because he had alcoholism problems, and maybe you think like maybe it would have triggered a relapse or something if he would have gone through some kind of traumatic experience. Some traumatic. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. And who knows if he was, I don't even know if Todd was asked, or maybe he was asked and said no. Whatever it is, there was tons of winners that we would have loved to see. And just to see somebody not win it just irritated the crap out of me. And again, I like Ben as a person, just not as a player. So I
also would love a world where I get to see Todd play again. Don't get me wrong.
For sure. Yeah. But talking about this from Sarah's perspective, I would have absolutely held Ben hostage and made him stay in the game, because getting this quote unquote like resume point, this is not a resume point to me. Having somebody volunteer to quit the game and then voting out an ally that has your back 100%. How is that a resume point other than just, oh, Tony didn't know about this vote? But that's kind of just like, you only did it to say, oh, like Tony wasn't included.
Yeah. It's like what Sophie said earlier.
It gives her a vote if she and Tony are on the final three together, though. Like, Ben will vote for her over Tony.
That's true. Yeah, this whole thing felt to me like how Sophie was saying, like there are those like high schoolers where, your resume is clearly just padded with stuff just to like have stuff on it. And this felt like a move like that for me, where it wasn't really something that really had much of a purpose, other than just to say like I did something without Tony.
Yeah. But this is another thing that I thought was like, other than just the resume point thing, I really think that if Michelle goes in this spot, I think every person remaining, it would be Ben, Michelle, and Natalie. I think that all three of them, if they won immunity, would take Sarah and put the other two to fire. If Natalie wins, she wants Ben to beat Tony in fire. If Tony wins, Sarah is his closest ally, and he probably wants Natalie out of the game, so put Ben against Natalie in fire. And Ben allegedly wants to like go on the sword for Sarah, so maybe he puts himself in fire against Tony, or he just takes Sarah to the end and puts Natalie and Tony against fire. But like any combination, Sarah is pretty much guaranteed a final three spot. I know that some people think that being the person that gets taken to final three is a bad look, but I think that since Sarah has such a phenomenal social game, I think that she could spin it in a way that kind of like Tommy did last season, where she was playing to her strengths and like the social game is her strength. I feel like she should have seen that. Like that was her path to, no matter what, be sitting in the final three.
Yeah. No, I think she really like kind of shot herself in the foot there, just trying to get fancy and like vote Ben out when he kind of asked her to.
Yeah. I mean, I think Sarah was the person in this finale who like actively, like she lost the game in the finale. I think up until this point, she had played almost a flawless game, but she misplayed final six and final five pretty terribly, in my opinion. And this is why she deserves to lose over Tony.
Right. Agreed.
And then obviously we have Michelle and Natalie voting out Ben, which I think that they should have clearly put their votes onto Sarah.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, and then Ben could play Tony in fire if Tony doesn't win that immunity challenge. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it's just like Natalie, her goal should be to get out Tony, and I think that's what her goal has been. But in order to do that, like, it seems like getting out Sarah is the best way to keep Ben in the game, who, first of all, has never won an immunity challenge, and I guess neither has Sarah. But yeah, I just think like they shouldn't want to go to final three with either Sarah or Tony, so you have to get one of them out at 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Or 6. But
yeah,
Who's keeping track?
Oh, poor Denise.
Yeah, poor Denise didn't even get a confessional.
I know. I love her.
Yeah, she was subtitled saying like that she also didn't want to split the vote, but I literally like other than that, I don't even remember anything that she said in the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So ultimately, Ben gets voted out, yada yada, and we have the epic ball on the track immunity challenge. Which
love this
I
challenge.
love. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw those tracks and I was
don't
like,
know for sure. Sorry, go ahead.
oh no,
There's
I
a
was
little
just gonna
lag.
say I saw it and I was like so excited. This is every time that this comes up, especially when it's a Final Four immunity challenge, I love it.
I don't know for certain, but if you go back to February, like we're talking the weekend after Valentine's Day, I think. I'm pretty sure I called this as the final challenge. I knew it was going to be in the finale. It's called Simotion, which is a weird name.
Wait, what is it called?
But Simotion, Simmotion, I think. Maybe one M.
Okay.
Weird name, but it's such a well done challenge. It is something you could build in your backyard, kind of. One day I'll get around to doing it when I have a backyard.
Yeah.
I've played a very similar challenge to this. It was built by somebody who builds survival challenges, and it's super super fun. I don't even think I did very well in it because I wasn't like that serious about it. Yeah, it's super cool. It's super unique. It's just one of those challenges that like this is an iconic Survivor challenge because you've never seen anything like it until Survivor did it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Michelle and Natalie kill it, obviously.
Yeah, I mean the combination of the focus. There's a little bit of the hand-eye coordination with. I mean, Natalie had a couple great catches there where I thought the ball was going down and she like somehow caught it and kept throwing it up there. And then you also have to like mentally like keep track of when you should be placing these balls in. I mean, there are just a lot of different moving components that are a lot of fun to watch.
I've gotten to play the Plinko version of this.
Okay.
Do you guys know what Plinko is?
Yeah, I know what challenge you're talking about because they did it in Survivor AU.
So Plinko is the Price is Right game where you have a little disc and you place it in a pegboard and it falls into how much money you win.
Right.
So the version we played is you've got the pegboard on either side, and when you catch the ball, you get to drop it. Like you quickly get to throw it up into your opponent's side.
Oh, okay, cool.
And whichever team drops it first, the other team gets the point. So I've gotten to play something similar. It's so much fun to play.
Yeah.
Short of keep your hand on the immunity idol, like short of doing the season 1 thing, this is probably your best final challenge that Survivor has on their resume.
Absolutely, I would agree with that.
And it was perfect for Natalie. Going back and watching just how many times she made really spectacular catches, but also the other players just were all caught off guard when they missed. She never had to quickly adjust left to right. The near misses that she had were all dexterity things. The other 3 players clearly all lost focus right before they went out.
Yeah.
I
feel like this was
all 3, 4, and 5 respectively.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think this was a challenge tailor-made for Natalie. I think like her whole thing throughout this season, we've seen her just like persevere and have a lot of like this mental toughness that we've seen come out of her like this whole time that she was on edge. Like her drive was just generally really impressive. On the other hand, this was like not like immediately when I saw this challenge come up, I was like, no way Tony is winning this. I think it's probably going to be Natalie because Tony's like so all over the place and scatterbrained that I just don't think it's like, I don't think this challenge plays to his strengths, which like we saw clearly like it didn't.
Yeah. And I didn't even say it last challenge, but Tony won 4 immunities, which is tied for the most immunities that a winner has won.
Oh wow!
Which is pretty cool.
I did not know that. Cool.
Yeah.
Who is the other?
No, that can't be right. That can't be right. Didn't Mike Holloway win 5? Didn't he join the Aussie Club?
I thought that he had won 4, and then he played an immunity idol to keep himself safe at a tribal council also.
That's probably.
So I think it might have been like he had the most like tribals that he was immune, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure he only won 4, and the way I know this is because, again, going back to my live reality gaming experience, my tribe lost a challenge, a trivia challenge, and my question was, which two male winners have won 4 immunity challenges, and I said I knew that Mike Holloway was one, and the other one I guess was Boston Rob, but it was Tom Westman has also won.
Mike has won 5.
He has? Seriously?
Yes.
Has
Tom
Westman won?
Terry Dietz won 5. Wow, I knew Terry was good. I didn't know he got 5.
Okay, and Brad.
Ozzy, Mike,
yeah,
and Brad Culpepper.
Okay, then the question. See, this is why I got the question wrong. I didn't even know that. So I guess it was 5. So I guess Tony still is like that's a pretty good record to get 4.
Oh, super impressive. Yeah. I'm not trying to take away from what Tony did.
Right.
Yeah, he didn't have any wins. Yeah,
right.
He didn't have any wins before this. So I'm big turnaround for him. Kind
of crazy that Sarah, who is like such an amazing athlete, has had 0, and she's gone to the end twice.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Totally.
Yeah, and so then after that, we get the everyone is practicing fire segment, and we see Sarah and Tony both kind of suck, and Michelle was doing really good. And this is according to the edit, so everything is kind of, take it with a grain of salt.
Right.
But I was surprised that ultimately, based on what we've seen, that Natalie did not put Michelle against Tony and fire, because her only goal right now should be Tony has to get out because nothing else matters.
Right.
Everything I've read in the past couple days is talking about how downplayed Tony's fire was, and that Tony was the guy in fire. I say guy, sorry, that was sexist. He was the player in fire. You weren't beating Tony, from what people are saying, and that the edit was just an edit and not actually fair to Tony. But then we see the actual fire making challenge play out, and both of them were going really slow for a fire making challenge.
Huh.
I mean, this was the closest fire making challenge in memory that I could come up with. I feel like usually fire making challenges, they're both hacking at that flint for a while, and I feel like a lot of times people don't even it's one person that gets their fire going, and maybe the other one is just starting to build it up. But
yeah,
I don't know. This was really close. I mean, both of them had decent sized fires. So it's hard to say if it was nerves, if Tony was kind of the person to beat with fire, or if it was just, maybe the edit made it look closer than it was. It's hard to say.
I mean, obviously the best fire making challenge of all time is Becky versus Sundra on Cook Island. But no, but I
really thought you were about to bring up Australian Survivor, which had some really good fire making challenges this season.
Well, I know that Jeff said by far the quickest one was Edge of Extinction, Rick versus Chris. I know he said it was over in like 2 or 3 minutes, which is pretty insane. And so this was obviously not as quick, but it was just as close, I think, as Chris versus Rick. Really came down to the wire.
My favorite fire making challenge is during Yule's first season. I forget which season, what the title of that one was.
That's the one I was talking about.
Matches. Oh.
Yeah. Becky versus Sundra.
Becky and Sundra.
Yeah, they needed matches.
Yeah.
And then they still didn't even get it that quickly after getting matches. Just
they ran out of matches. They broke multiple flints. That was I loved all the shots of the jury during that where they're just
I think Ozzy fell asleep.
Yeah. That was unreal.
Or something. My favorite fire making challenge is Australia All Stars episode 1. Because it was a team fire making challenge. That's how they started the season.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was really cool. But that being said,
it was massive.
That being said, no, the most iconic is definitely from Cook Islands.
Yeah, for not the best reason. But I guess I just feel like, and again, this is just based on the edit, but whether you think that Tony is good at fire or not, you have to put the best fire maker against him, because Natalie knows this is I have to get Tony out or I have no chance of winning. I feel like she knew that she wasn't going to win against Tony. So I feel like either she needed to go against Tony or put Michelle, who seemed like the best fire maker, against him. So I feel like we really didn't get the full explanation of why it was Sarah, other than she said she just wanted to make sure the alliance was ending for good. I just don't think that was the best strategic decision.
You also don't want to give either of them the guaranteed jury vote of the other. You want to split the jury between the two if you can.
Well, but I feel like you don't want to go against Tony no matter what, in my opinion. So you have to put Tony on the jury.
Right. I think you don't want to go against Tony no matter what. But if Tony makes it into the finals, having Sarah be that second person with him, I honestly think is a better case scenario than going with Michelle, because at least like
Right.
Tony and Sarah both played decent games. And Sarah, because she worked with Tony through pretty much all of the votes, could maybe take away some of the votes that ended up going to Tony in the end, giving Natalie a closer shot.
Yeah. I don't know if ultimately maybe Natalie was overconfident in how many jury votes she was going to get, but I was thinking at Final Five, maybe she should have played her idol for Michelle just because that's a ballsier move. That's a more like respectable move from the jury's perspective than to play an idol on yourself.
Right.
And it also highlights that you survived socially, that you didn't get any votes on yourself.
Right.
Kind of highlights that. And then to also not go against Tony and Fire, those are two opportunities that I think you have to take the Chris Underwood effect into account of like Chris Underwood, quote unquote, playing perfectly from Final Six. You have to match that at least. And Natalie did not do that. She had an idol from the edge, and then she found an idol, which is impressive. But like, that's not enough, in my opinion. And first of all, I don't think there's anything that anybody should be able to do to win playing for Final Six. But if you are going to do that,
she was the first. It's not even like she was Chris Underwood, where she survived a couple. Like it was literally, she survived no tribal councils until she got to Final Six.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying is like if you were the first boot, like you have to come back and play this Final Six like balls to the wall. Like you have to play your idol for Michelle. You have to go against Tony and Fire Making. Like I know it's scary that you might not make the final tribal council, but this is $2 million. Like you cannot play half-assed. And I love Natalie, and I think that she's amazing. But she did not play hard enough.
No.
If this was the first Edge of Extinction season, do you guys think that fans would have been much more receptive to it?
I honestly, I don't. It's hard for me to relate to like a casual fan versus like super fans. But for me, like when with the first Edge of Extinction, when Chris Underwood was playing like a balls to the wall, like absolutely wild game, I even felt conflicted because I was like, do I want Chris to win? Like, I don't know what I want at this point. And like that felt conflicted. So I feel like, especially this season where Natalie certainly did not play a perfect game. She had like definitely some big moves, like, finding the idol in the woods was, a big one. But I don't know. I think regardless of whether there was a first Edge of Extinction or not, I think Natalie doesn't win.
Yeah, to answer your question, JC, I do think that like this would have been better received as the first Edge of Extinction, like as the season is happening, maybe not at the end. But I think like if fans don't exactly know like when the person is going to come back and how exactly like how hard or how easy is it going to be for that person to get to the end, I think it's going to be better like watching it through the season, because I feel like everybody was kind of dreading it the whole time.
Yeah.
Watching it this time, knowing that the possibility that Natalie could win the game.
Totally.
I've stated a couple of times I'm not a huge fan of Edge of Extinction, which is super ironic because not that you're anywhere near it being on Big Brother 2, but I really do like Big Brother's Battle Back concept. But it also happens after 1 month of the 3 months they're playing. It's a third of the way in the game.
Yeah,
I'm not spoiling fantastic. Anything.
And by the way, JC, there actually is one of those in season 3.
You're right. But, there is.
Yeah.
But remember, I don't know about any of the twists. Like new twists and stuff that come up later, that is considered a spoiler for me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, we're not saying any names, but
that's okay.
I mean, Big Brother in future seasons does have like a mechanism in which a player can come back into the game, but it's, kind of sometimes they don't do it every season and they change the timing of it. So it's pretty, random in terms of what it's going to be.
And it's never at the final 6. It's never that late in the game.
They did that in Big Brother Canada where they like brought somebody in like when there was 4 people left and brought in one person to make 5th, and it's like no. And then that person of course ended up in final 2 and almost won the game. But I digress because nobody you guys don't watch Big Brother Canada, and it's like totally different.
The one thing I know about Big Brother Canada is the player who made the mistake like that
was
big...
the same season.
Oh.
Anyways. I digress. So ultimately we see a really like emotional Fire Making where like Tony and Sarah are both like in tears. I was kind of surprised at like how emotional they both got, considering how kind of like stone cold killers they are.
Yeah, like humanize them a little bit compared to how we've been seeing them for most of the season.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Just going back real quick. I know Natalie said in confessional, like, if Sarah does beat Tony, that's a great resume point for Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just like another thing of I don't understand like the logic of putting Sarah against Tony, because either Tony wins and you can't win the game, or Sarah wins and it gives her a better chance to beat you.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas Michelle, I don't feel like it matters either way, whether she beats Tony or not. I don't think that Michelle was going to win the game.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. So going into final tribal council, what did you guys think of their individual jury speeches?
I thought it was interesting because I think Natalie's jury speeches for me felt like a little bit defensive, where I feel like Rob asked her, why didn't you go up against Fire? And I feel like just her answers were like not very satisfactory, and they felt like a little bit cagey and a little bit defensive to me, which I didn't love. Tony, on the other hand, I don't think really answered the questions all that well that he was like asked, but he was like super entertaining in his like normal Tony character self, which I think works well because it makes you likable, and it makes like the jury members, sometimes like respect you more, even if you're not necessarily breaking down the individual points of the game. I think it was, especially for Tony, it was clear that he was the strategic player between the three of these guys. But overall, it was like an interesting final tribal because all three of those players had such different paths to get to the end. So it was interesting, rather than, if it was Sarah, Tony, and Natalie, for example, like Natalie's like story is pretty short, obviously, of her actually being in the game. And then Sarah and Tony have like pretty similar resume points throughout the game.
To me, that would have been more interesting to see Sarah and Tony go at each other, because then you have to distinguish who made what moves, who was responsible for like what parts of the alliance. Whereas Tony can kind of just take credit for everything because there's nobody that he's like sitting next to like kind of debate it.
Right.
But yeah, there was a point where I think somebody asked, Tony, how did you do it? How were you not targeted this entire time? How did you never get a vote? And Tony's like, okay, so my first season, I had a spy shack. Then I had a spy bunker. And I'm like, what are you answering right now? What question was just asked?
Well, yeah, like Rob had asked, like, hey, Tony, like, how are you doing it where, like, you, like, all these people who you're responsible for voting off don't feel bitter towards you. Like, what's your secret? And again, he had, like, some random story. It, like, did not answer the question at all.
Yeah.
But ultimately, in the end, it like didn't really matter.
Right. So we're getting 15 minutes of what I'm sure is a 2-3 hour tribal council for them. So we're probably getting the start of his answer, and then the end of his answer actually ties in his story.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grasping at straws, trying to give him the benefit of the doubt here.
Yeah, and I think that the jury like loved it. They were having a good time, and they were probably going to vote for him no matter what. He ultimately gets 12 of the 16 votes. So I don't think this is a scenario in which Final Tribal is going to change the outcome of the game.
Right.
Especially because obviously we've been hearing for a long time, like, Tony is the front runner to win.
Mm-hmm.
I'm adding on to the list of changes I would make to Survivor a cosmetic change. Give the jury a roof.
Yeah, I feel like if it's going to be raining during Final Tribal Council, like, have everybody under a roof. Like, I don't care that they're out in the rain suffering right now, because like the game is essentially over.
The game's over at this point. Like, Sophie looked bad. And I think she was sick. I think she was sick
the night before. She missed the fire making challenge.
Yeah, she looked
the night before, and then she like had to show up the next day. I kind of
looked like he was suffering.
I wonder how long it was in reality. I would imagine it, like the final tribal would have gone on longer, perhaps, if not in the edit, but in real life, like I think it would have gone on longer if everybody wasn't so miserable. I would imagine people were like, okay, we know who we're voting for. Can we just like wrap it up and move on, please?
Yeah, I know that
miserable in the rain.
Usually these things go on for like 3 hours or so, I've heard. And so they did not stay out in the rain for 3 hours. I bet it was like an hour and a half max.
Yeah. Even that's way too much.
Yeah, especially people know who they're voting for. So
how long did Final Tribal go for your live game?
Oh gosh, I think they were probably like less than an hour each.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've never gotten to experience Tribal Council. The games that I play are all Amazing Race style. Like, when you lose the challenge, you're out. So, like, even the Total Drama game that I played didn't have a tribal council except for one of the challenges where the whole challenge was tribal council. Did I ever tell you about the final challenge, like the how the winner was decided?
I don't think so.
It was the theme song for Total Drama, and it was karaoke.
Oh, see,
it was a singing contest. It was, oh man, it was terrible from a like a live game player perspective. It was so bad, but the fact that you're playing a Total Drama Island knockoff, it was perfect.
Oh, yeah, so I guess. I would not win that because I have not seen that since I was like.
Oh, 12. None of the people still in knew the words, and I'm just sitting there on the bench, like singing along, very intoxicated, but singing along. and the girl next to me just turns and she's like, "Why aren't you still in this?" And I'm like, "'Cause I rolled a 1."
Oh yeah, because you lost on a dice game.
Yep.
Do you guys like?
I want to play another live game so bad.
I know. As soon as like quarantine is lifted, I will. Yeah, I'm sure people will be putting in application or lifting applications for their games. You can apply to one.
I think I'm gonna host another one.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'm definitely gonna host another one at Katsucon. I Survived a Katsucon game show season 2 has been yellow lit. It's not green lit yet because we don't know if the convention is happening, but it either this year or next year it's gonna happen. I've got a really good map out for it. I'm so excited. But I don't know. When quarantine's over, I might hold another one here, just like in the middle of nowhere, Virginia. Like use a soccer pitch near me to have some fun physical challenges.
I wish I lived closer, JC. I would totally play. I don't know how you guys feel, but I kind of miss like the old jury format where we got like people making speeches. I know it takes ultimately longer and maybe like it eats up too much time in the finale, but I like to see each individual jury member ask a question.
Yeah, I think that there were perks of that. Like I liked being able to hear like each individual person's like perspective, and like sometimes people were really upset and it was like nice to see that. But I generally feel like the winner is, I don't know. I think like a lot of times with those like questions, or sometimes people don't even ask any questions, you know,
right.
like when
they just do a statement.
We have the opportunity. It's just a statement about something. I think that this way it's like kind of nice where you get to dive into the game a bit more and like get some more detail. With the question, you can like only ask so much. And I do enjoy kind of like the back and forth sort of style, but I agree. I think especially in juries this large, I mean, we had 16 jury members.
Right. You can't do it in a jury like this.
No.
For sure.
No, exactly.
You guys ready for the 5-person jury next season? Did I say that last week? I might have said that last week.
Why would we have a 5-person jury?
Oh, no, I'm just being facetious. Oh. But, like, we had a 16-person jury, so they're going to turn it around and do a 5-person I don't know.
I wouldn't be mad at that. You can do a 5-person. I mean, I think that, like, 7 or 9 is a better number, but...
Probably.
Yeah.
I'm just ready for all the 16-year-olds.
Like the 11-person juries we've been getting is a little bit too high.
Yeah.
16 is also too much. Yeah, because the reading of the votes is so awkward when it's just like obvious at the point you get like 2 votes for Tony in a row towards the end. It's like, oh, okay, Tony's won, and it's like then you have to listen to like 4 more votes being read for Tony before the winner of Survivor Winners at War.
Yeah, totally.
Like, it's just a little awkward, and I felt so bad for Michelle sitting there like for like 5 straight minutes not receiving a vote.
Oh, I know. Their facial expressions watching them being read, they didn't know. Mm-mm. Like that's not something that's brand new. Like there are definitely people who think they have a chance and then don't get the million, but all 3 of them had no idea, and it's kind of cool because that's something that we haven't had for a number of seasons.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked at like too much post-game press, but I did see a little clip of Tony saying that like, if you weren't going to vote for me, he feels like Michelle should have gotten some of the votes over Natalie. He feels like Michelle played an underrated game, and I do agree. Like, I wish Michelle would have gotten a couple of votes. And I understand that like we don't get the experience of living on edge of extinction, but I just don't think that like Natalie played good from the final 6. And I don't feel like she really was worthy of getting votes. And, it's hard to throw around the words worthy and deserving, being on the outside, not getting to experience the game.
Right.
But I was sad for Michelle that she didn't get any votes after the game she played.
Me too. I was sad for her as well because I do think like with the game that she played, I don't think she deserved to win. Like I think Tony definitely deserved the win here.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I think like I think she deserved to get second place over Natalie. Like I was surprised. I was surprised Natalie got as many votes as she did. I mean, 4 votes is not nothing. I mean, that's 25% of the jury's votes.
Yeah.
So I was pretty surprised.
2 idols and an immunity win when all you've had was those 3 tribal councils. Oh, sorry, 4 with the first one. She played a really strong game. Natalie did an amazing job.
Mm-hmm.
But you're playing from the edge where, and this is just going off of reports I've read on Facebook, it really sounded like she rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Rob Mariano in particular was very vocal against her, from what I hear.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw a bit of that in tribal council as well.
Yeah. Basically saying that she isolated members of the jury. And I know that Parvati said that what she likes about Natalie is that Natalie speaks her mind. She's not a fake person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's generally a quality I like. But also, if you're not one of the people that Natalie is fond of, then obviously you're not going to like that trait.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Totally.
Yeah, so it's just a symptom of like Natalie is probably one of those people, like she has her friends, and if you're not one of her friends, you probably are not very close with her. And I do.
No, Natalie showed why she's so good at The Amazing Race. She's good at challenges.
Yeah.
She's good at finding advantages. The social game, not as much.
Right.
And I do think she played a good social game. I don't want to take away from anything she did in San Juan del Sur because I think that she played a fantastic game. And I know Jeff Probst called it like a top 10 win when he's at the start of this season. So I don't want to take anything away from that. But I just don't think that she played good enough to receive 4 jury votes in this particular season.
Yeah. Natalie, if you ever end up watching this, hey, I appreciate you as a player. I'd love to see you play a third time. Sorry about this time. Sorry about my commentary.
Yeah, I would love to see her play again. And the votes that she got, I know that her and Jeremy are super tight outside the game, so that's kind of just like not obligatory.
Mm-hmm.
But you kind of could see that one coming. Tyson, she gave an idol to. I know that they had interactions before the game.
Right.
Parvati, who was like her closest ally from the edge, and then Ethan, who maybe they had a relationship, there just wasn't time to show it.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, it's hard to be too nitpicky with who gave her votes.
Right.
But yeah, I'm super happy that Tony won. This was somebody that like nobody expected that Tony was going to be the winner of Survivor 40, and it's just like pretty insane.
No, I said he was second boot behind Sarah.
Yeah.
What I called the season so poorly.
No, and that is like not a hot take. Like almost everybody had Sarah and Tony going out very early because in Dalton Ross's pregame interviews, like everybody was writing down Sarah's name as the first person they wanted out. I mean, and I do think something that's interesting to think about is we were all saying that Tony was going to be one of the first people out. I think that the people going on to the season also felt that way. Like, oh, it's kind of having to do with what his edit in Cagayan was, which was a huge TV character who was super fun and finding idols and chaos. But it's kind of like expectation versus reality, where you think you're going to be getting this chaotic, crazy, off-the-wall person who never sleeps, and he never did sleep. But when you actually meet him, and he's a calm, down-to-earth, relatable person who talks about his kids and his wife, and just seems so normal, I think you're like, oh, this isn't the person that I was expecting. This is somebody that I can work with.
He did a good job of being so outspoken in the first couple episodes, being like, I'm on house arrest, guys. No idol searching here, I think he did a good job of lowering his threat level in that regard early on.
Who was your, going into the season, who were your picks, Cassie? Because you weren't around in February with us.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I thought Yul had a decent chance because it had been so long since he was in. I was really excited to see Kim. I thought Kim, played an excellent game the first time and was excited to see her play again. I thought she had a good chance. I also thought Sophie could have potentially, I think Sophie, a few years older. Those are kind of my top 3, if I'm thinking through correctly. Trying to think if there's anybody else, but yeah, I think I expected Yul to go further than he ended up doing. I think he just put too much of a target on his back because he was thinking 1,000 steps ahead, out loud to everybody else. Yul's probably my favorite Survivor player, so I think I'm a little bit Yul and Kim are my 2 favorites. So I think I was a little bit partial, and then I thought Sophie would do a good job, and I didn't think her threat level would be very.
Yeah,
it would make me so happy to get Yul back for a third.
Yeah, it's not possible. I feel like he could come back. Yeah, just kind of comparing the perception of Tony coming into the season to Kim. I think certain people are kind of screwed by the edit they got last time, and we people know that Kim is regarded as one of the best winners of all time, and that showed. Whereas Tony was regarded as a good winner, but like he was a survivor unicorn. That like he played a fantastic game that could never be repeated.
Right.
So just kind of those narratives coming into the season. I didn't think about it before the season started, but Tony came in with a target on his back that was like almost so big it was invisible. Where like
Right.
nobody thought they could actually get to the end because he was such like a random chaotic force that nobody could predict.
Right.
So in a way,
For sure.
it weirdly worked to his advantage, and that doesn't take away from his win, which was, like I said, maybe the best game ever played considering the cast that he was playing against.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do think that like looking back, I think that people should have been higher on Tony coming into the season because I don't think he actually had that big of a target on his back.
If Edge of Extinction was not in play, I don't think Tony wins this season. I think at Final 6, they really do knock him off. Maybe Final 5, though he had immunity at Final 5. Yeah, I really don't see Tony winning this season if Edge is not part of the season. But that being said, with Edge being part of the season, I didn't see Tony winning this season until he did.
Right.
So,
I mean, it's easy for us to
yeah.
say, like, oh, if Edge wasn't there, like, they would have kicked Tony off at 6 or 5. I mean, I thought they needed to kick Tony off, like I thought, like, he needed some votes, like, previously. And, like, nobody
Oh, yeah.
ever, like, a lot of times it seemed like he wasn't even, like, a major contender for the votes. So I think it's hard to say. Obviously, like, what ifs are, it's hard to say. But I kind of disagree. I think he was playing a pretty decent social game, it seemed like, where he had really gotten like some really solid loyalty from the people that he trusted. And I honestly don't know if they would have gone after him.
I personally think that
survive.
I think that Edge hindered his chances to win. I think that foursome of Denise, Ben, and Sarah, and Tony, especially that core three of Ben and Sarah and him, was so tight, and they were not going to turn on each other. And I genuinely think that like Sarah and Tony's outside the game relationship was so strong that they were not turning on each other no matter what. Like, I don't even think that after Sarah found out that Tony was like the big threat to win, I think that she was like, oh, I'm still taking Tony to the end, but I just have to increase my resume so I can win over him, but I'm still taking him to the end. And really, and I know Tony mentioned this in his speech, but the only things that affected him from Edge specifically was the extortion disadvantage and Natalie coming back into the game and telling everybody that he was the biggest threat. So I think that he played a dominant game in spite of the Edge potentially hurting him. And that made him have 2 more rounds in the game than he had to survive being a big threat. Like he had to survive, the extra rounds that came in because of Tyson and Natalie returning to the game.
Totally. That's true. I don't really think about it that way a lot, that by having the Edge with these 2 people coming back, you're essentially adding 2 more tribal councils onto a season. Which is not nothing. I mean, each time you go to tribal without that necklace around your neck, you're vulnerable, and he survived the whole season without getting a single vote.
Man, you're telling me right now.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, it's kind of like Australian Survivor, where like the more people there are, the harder it is for a massive threat to get to the end because there's just more opportunities to vote that person out. So I feel like, Tony played the best game that we could have expected. And I did have a few notes from I did watch the Ponderosa videos. One thing
are they good this time around?
I'm sorry?
Are they good this time around? I haven't had the chance to see them yet.
Yeah, it's super fun because, I mean, basically everybody from Edge of Extinction has a group one that's 45 minutes long. And then...
Shoot, that is a lot. Okay.
And then there's another 45 minutes dedicated to Sandra, Denise, Ben, and Sarah. Separately. They all have separate ones. So there's an extra hour and a half of content that you guys can watch. One thing that I was really struck by was damn, Sophie played amazing, because I really think that if Tony had not gotten Sophie out there, she and Tony would have been the top 2 contenders to win. One thing that I didn't realize is, Denise and Ben talk in their Ponderosas about how close they were to Sophie. And those are 2 relationships that we didn't even get to see on the show. So we saw that Sophie was super close with Sarah and Kim. And so if Sophie also had Denise and Ben, that's 4 people. And she got out at final 9. So theoretically, if she makes another tribal council, it's going to be extremely hard to get her voted out. So I was just really impressed by how
Yeah.
good those bonds were that we didn't even see, and we already saw that Sophie was a great force in the game.
Right. Yeah.
And then,
Even more like good on Tony, to see that as his
Right.
opportunity to take her out, leaving Sarah with nobody else to work with other than Tony, essentially.
Yeah, and that was why it was like a 4-3-2 vote, is because Tony probably realized like he could not vote out Sophie with the majority, or it would be really, really difficult at least. There was interestingly, Wendell said that his closest person on the edge of extinction was Danny, which I'm like, that's an interesting pair.
Yeah,
which they both didn't have. They didn't have big edits on the edge, so I guess we wouldn't have gotten to see it. But I just like, that's nice.
Yeah, Danny and Wendell, that's a fun pair.
I'm glad she wasn't alone out there. Like, Danny she didn't do anything to deserve a better edit, probably, but like Danny didn't have a good edit. Like, I'm glad she had somebody out there and wasn't just kind of like, hey, I'm hanging out with Amber and Rob.
It actually seems like her and Harvey were super close, and her and Amber were super close. So I feel like Danny probably has some good friendships out there. And then the last thing is, there was like 4 women that were like having a toast. I think it was like Kim and Sophie and Parvati were all there, and somebody else. And then it like pans over, and like Nick is also there toasting his champagne. And it just reminded me of like all of those conversations where like Nick butts in and just like inserts himself into the conversation. I'm like, Nick just like grabbed the champagne glass and like rushed over there to be part of it.
Gosh, don't make me compare myself to Nick. Is Nick really the person I'm most like on this cast?
Are you, JC?
So there was an event that before he passed, the actor for Chewbacca was at. I was at a sci-fi convention, and I walk over, and one of my friends from college is standing next to him, and I walk over to ask them a question, and I walk over at just the right moment for somebody to take a picture. So I turn because I noticed the pictures being taken, and I pose in this picture with them. And then like 20 minutes later, they tell me they were getting a picture with Peter. What's his last name? I think it starts with an M. Anyway, so the actor for Chewbacca, they're taking a photo with him, and I completely accidentally photobombed Chewbacca.
Nice.
And just because I didn't even realize what was going on, so like, yeah.
If it makes you feel better, I compared myself to Adam like 3 or 4 times this season, so you could do worse.
Oh man, I tried to get Davey for one of the conventions that I was a part of. I definitely told y'all at the beginning of the season, but I don't think I've told Cass yet. And last minute, like we're getting the contract finalized, and last minute he says, "Hey, I've got a new agent. Can you send them the contract?" And the new agent completely killed the deal altogether. But almost got Davey to show up to an anime convention because he was talking about being this huge blurred.
I feel like he goes to those, I'm sure. Like I feel like he talks about going to Comic-Cons and stuff like that.
He definitely goes to Dragon Con because he's from Atlanta, and that's.
I don't know all these terms. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't.
No, you're good. You're good. Dragon Con is it's like the 2nd or 3rd biggest event on the East Coast. It's like the 4th or 5th biggest event in the nation, behind San Diego Comic-Con and New York Comic-Con.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah.
Well, other than that, I was just going to ask you guys, like, what do you think of the season overall? Like, I don't know if you guys have ever gone through and just ranked the seasons, but I haven't personally put this in my season rankings, but I would say that this is probably for me, like in the 6 or 7 area. Do you guys feel that strongly about the season? Would you rank it higher? Would you rank it lower?
I'd probably rank it around, like, I'd say like 5 through 7, maybe. It was in general just like really exciting to see all of these players. You know, some people like Yul and Kim, who I love as players that I've only gotten to see play one time. It was great to see them out there again. So for that reason, I think it's like ranked pretty high. And I think the ending of the season ended up, really being solid and like kind of bumping it up there. I think if the ending, like if the finale was kind of boring, I don't know if it would be ranked that highly for me. Like maybe closer to 10. But no, I thought it was a great season.
The finale brought it up for me, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
JC?
If you take away the family visit episode, I'd even put this as high as 3rd or 4th.
You hated the family visit episode?
It was an empty episode.
You guys are heartless.
Yes, I am.
I tell you.
No, I'm on Team Randy.
You cried for the finale.
I'm on Team Randy when it comes to family visits. If they cast me for Survivor, you're not going to have someone coming out to visit me for the family visit. Production is going to be scrambling to figure out what to do.
Why?
See.
Figuratively, no. I've got family members that would show up, but like I'd be sitting there like, okay, cool. You brought my best friend. You brought my uncle. Like, cool. Let's get to the next.
I loved at the family visit when like Nick's fiance came out and she was like, "Hi." I'm just like, me. That's what I would do.
Oh my gosh. My favorite family visit in recent memory is like when Christian's girlfriend came out, and Christian, like before even like giving her a hug, was like, "Look, you're on Survivor. It's Jeff. Do you see Jeff right there?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'd be more so ideally I'd want my best friend over any family member. It's not that I'm not close to my family, it's just like I can go 40 days without seeing them. I don't need I don't have anybody in my life that I see on a day-to-day basis. I'm not the greatest emotional person for their casting. And so one day I'm going to make it far enough into the casting process that they're going to be digging information about me and they're going to find this video and this is what's going to get me, like, stop me from getting cast. I know it.
No.
Oh my gosh.
If you ever make it to finals, JC will just delete everything.
Yeah.
Oh man. No, I think you have a much better chance for Survivor than I do, Luke.
Oh, we'll see. You guys haven't seen that video, and I've never made it. I've never made it anywhere in the casting process either. So,
yeah.
I just submitted my first video the other day. It was fun.
You should send it to us so we can watch.
I'll send it to you. It's like kind of embarrassing, but it's okay.
I'll send you mine.
I need to read that Big Brother winner's book on how to get cast for reality television.
Yeah, don't look it up, Cassie, because it will spoil who wins one of the seasons of Big Brother for you. But one of them wrote a guide on how to get on reality television, and it's super helpful. We're a little bit deep in the weeds, but yeah, JC, is this a top 10 season for you?
Yeah, no. Like I'm like 5 or 6. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I feel like we're probably all about in the same boat. Would you say yes or no? This is the best single strategic game that anybody has ever played on Survivor?
Oh, not even close.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Not even close.
For me, I think it's hard. Who played better than Tony did?
Yul.
Right.
And yes, people will say, "Oh, he had the super idol," but like he leveraged that advantage. He like lorded that over people and did an amazing job.
Yeah. For me, I think
Yul played a great. I think Yul played a great game. I'm the first one to admit that, but I think in more like recent Survivor, where there's a little bit more of like a randomness factor, some of these advantages. I think Tony did a really good job at navigating through all of that and making sure that he was never, on the bad side of any of the random kind of votes, like even if it was down to a couple people that he was safe. I mean, for me, Luke, I have a hard time thinking of anybody that played like a better strategic game than what Tony did this season. I think Tony played an excellent game. I'm struggling to think of anybody that I think even came close to him.
And for me, it's not a. I was going to say it's not about.
We're looking at this. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just saying, I don't think he played the most dominant game in Survivor by any means. I think Boston Rob, Redemption Island, most dominant game. For me, the best single game that anybody's ever played is Kim Spradlin in One World. But considering who Tony was up against, and I'm not usually somebody that's like, oh, well, they played against a weak cast, so it doesn't count. But like Tony played against the best cast in the history of Survivor by far, like in terms of how good they are as players.
Totally.
And he never received a vote against him. He was never really targeted. Like, that is insane. And he won by a landslide. It's not like he played some under the radar game and then pulled it out in the final tribal council. Like, everybody knew from so early on that he was a massive threat, that he was playing a great game, and he still was never targeted.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why I think for me.
Yeah.
So one question I have for you. This is not the last thought I want to propose, but very close to. Do you weight the seasons based on what players have seen before them? So do you treat Borneo like you treat Winners at War in terms of strategy and performance? Or do you acknowledge that?
It's hard to even compare. It's hard to even compare Winners at War to Borneo because they're obviously not the same game. So, I mean, people who say that Richard Hatch is the greatest winner in Survivor history, I'm like, it's hard to say that because it's the game had he invented the game. It's like
Exactly.
Is like Mark Burnett the best Survivor player of all time? Like Richard Hatch invented how to play Survivor. So like he's an icon and a pioneer. But like, would Richard Hatch be able to play? Like, would Richard Hatch have won Survivor 40? I don't think he has his snowball chance in hell of winning Survivor 40. So I feel like Tony is the best winner of like the modern iteration of Survivor, but it's hard to articulate like why I think he's the best winner. Like I feel like he's the best player in modern Survivor, whatever that means to you, I guess.
And I'm not challenging you to defend your statement. I'm really just throwing this out there as it's something to think about. It's a good interview question. Like I'm not trying to like confront you.
I know. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's hard to compare any early season of Survivor to any late season of Survivor. Period.
And even it's hard to like two separate games, like you said. Like they're so different.
Yeah, it's hard to even compare Tony's win to Yule's win. Like Yule played with idols and everything, but Yule played in a season that had the God idol, which is why I personally would not rank his win as high up, because even though I think he played the absolute best he could with the God idol, you can't negate the fact that he had it. Whereas I think a lot of people in a future season, if Tony would have had a God idol, I think he still like dominates, but he was able to do it without one, which is more impressive to me.
Yeah. The last talking point, and I really meant to bring this up earlier when we were talking about the gender bias. The last talking point I really wanted to push for our viewers is in the series of all-star seasons, women have historically done better, which goes against in the series of seasons, men have historically done better. So I just wanted to kind of like throw that out there as a counterpoint. I don't disagree that there is a little bit of sexism that has been prevalent in the last 5 years of Survivor, but I did want to throw like a female won All Stars, a female won Heroes Villains, a male won Second Chance, a female won Game Changers, and then a male won Winners at War, and that's all 5 pure All Star seasons, right? There isn't a 6th All Star season I'm forgetting.
No, that's it.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
So here's my counterpoint to that, right? Is like,
totally.
In my opinion, I think that the reason why women perhaps are more successful in these returning seasons is perhaps like in order for women, especially in like more recent eras of Survivor, in order to like overcome the odds of like, beating a lot of these men and like surviving throughout all these days. I think like kind of like we saw in this season how three out of the last 4 players were the most 3 recent female winners. Like, I think that there's an argument to be made that maybe like the women who won despite being women, like if we're saying that that's a downside in, more recent Survivor seasons, that maybe because they're like such dominant players otherwise, that against like these guys who maybe haven't like played against such strong women, maybe don't stand up to them. I don't know. I mean, it's hard because in Heroes versus Villains, there was the whole like Black Widow Brigade, right? That was Heroes versus Villains. I'm not getting mixed up with the seasons.
It happens in Micronesia, but they mentioned it a lot in Heroes Villains because JT thought there was a Black Widow alliance.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, there are things like that, but so that's kind of my counterpoint is perhaps like these women that win are like really strong and have overcome like these odds. So as a result, maybe they're like stronger players in some of these cases than a lot of the men that they're playing with.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had a counterpoint. Like, I really do like the discussion that comes out of this. It's so hard. It's so hard a topic to talk about. And it's not cut and dry at all. So I'm really glad we have a nice discourse going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, any other thoughts, guys?
That's everything I wanted to bring up for our video. It's been I'm surprised we managed to get all of this talked about in 2 hours. There was so much to cover.
Yeah.
Tons of content to cover. I'm really bummed that now we're Survivorless for the time being, and I'm just hoping that Jeff fulfills his promise of showing another Survivor season in the fall. Fingers crossed that everything works out for that.
We have to talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Talk about having Survivor.
You brought it up in the chat. I don't want to steal it from you. What's happening in the fall?
Yeah, well, I mean, allegedly we are getting a Survivor season in the fall, and allegedly Jeff wants to have a tribe of teenagers on the show, which is insane. He had a video saying, I mean, obviously, in the end of the Survivor finale, we saw that 16-year-olds can now apply to the show. But then I also saw some sort of Instagram clip of Jeff in an interview saying that he wants to have a tribe of teenagers, which is
So from
insanity.
what I've seen from the
That is
legal
crazy.
standpoint, the reason people age 16 are able to apply for the show is that by the time the show airs, they'll be close enough to 18 that they can push off claiming their prize money, that they'll be able to claim the prize money once they're 18 and can legally do so.
Right, because I thought
Okay.
it was for season 43 onward that
Yeah.
16-year-old.
It
Like,
is
so if you
43
apply
on,
now and you're
yes.
16, it's 43
Right.
onward. So
Well,
presumably
41, yeah.
next year.
41
So you
and
can
42
apply
already
while you're 16. You can apply while you're 16, turn 17, play while you're 17, and then your season doesn't finish airing, and like you turn 18 either right before or very close to the finale. Is how you can apply as a 16-year-old. You still kind of can't play as a 16-year-old,
Yeah.
and you have to be in that second airing season for it to work out correctly.
Yeah, but even then, I don't really understand why this has to be a thing. Like, I don't understand the draw. It's just super weird to me because I don't. I mean, I feel like we've had a
be
few
playing with
18.
16-year-old slaves.
Yeah, you already have that experience, Cassie, in online games. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, just there's your Will Wall, your Julia Sokolowski, and Michael Yerger. I don't know if I'm forgetting anybody, but those are like the three youngest people that I can think of.
Mhm.
And I know that Michael was a pretty popular figure, but I don't feel like any of the three of them are like fantastic. And I don't see any reason why I would want younger people on the show, especially since we just talked about in this season how much the show takes a toll on you, not only playing, but also seeing it air. Like, people are still developing at that age and have not really, maybe don't have the confidence that you have when you're like 24 or 25. So I don't think this is a good idea, and I don't necessarily care to see it happen, but I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on that.
I feel pretty similarly to you. I think it's a lot for a 16, 17. I mean, even if they're not playing till they're 17, it's a lot for a 17-year-old to handle at that point. And I just think like the psych screenings before they go on the psych evaluations need to be pretty substantial.
For sure.
To be able to send a 17-year-old out confidently that they will be able to mentally handle it.
Yeah.
I mean, just even the fact that like a lot of these kids have never lived on their own or lived away from their parents or, their loved ones, which is an experience a lot of people once they're a little bit older have. So I just think it would be tough.
I really think if you have someone compelling enough to play at the age of 17, you bookmark them, you'll wait till they're 20. And even that's still really young. You're going to get a much better performance out of them as I'm an adult now adult, not a calendar says I'm an adult.
Right.
It would be really hard for me to vote for a 17-year-old to receive $1 million. Like, it would be very difficult. And I'm even saying, like, I have all the utmost respect for the game. Even if they played a phenomenal game, I'm like, do I really want to give this person $1 million? It would be difficult.
Agreed.
I thought you were going to actually mention, allegedly, they're planning to film in Australia.
This is just a rumor that I have heard.
Just a rumor.
Who knows? But I would be excited for them to film it anywhere. It's nice to get a break from Fiji if this is the case. Even if they film somewhere in the U.S., I really don't give a shit. So wherever you want to film, as long as we get something in the fall, I'm all for it.
Yeah, Rob Sesternino's Wild West Survivor would be interested in that as well.
That's fine.
Season 5 of Endurance, I think, filmed in the U.S. It was season 5 or season 6.
Endurance.
Oh, I miss Endurance. Like, I don't want to advocate for I don't want to advocate for watching kids play one of these games now that we are adults. But as a teenager, watching Endurance was great.
Oh my gosh, I wanted to be on Endurance so badly. That show
I have played
really
so many times.
This is the one where they did like fire, rock, water as like there was some kind of challenge in the end.
So every episode had at least one challenge. You would either have a Samadhi challenge, where the Samadhi was either an advantage that you got or a disadvantage you gave to somebody else. And then you would have an endurance challenge, which wasn't necessarily like testing your endurance. And the endurance challenge, if you won it, you got to pick 2 teams to go to elimination, where they would play rock, paper, scissors.
Okay,
And
yes,
then
but it was
the
called
final
fire,
challenge,
water, or something like that.
it was wood, fire, water. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wood floats, water puts out the fire, fire burns the wood. And then the final challenge was kind of a cups game. You had a marble. You had a triangle that was gold, and the others were gray, and they were under 3, and then 4, and then 5, and it would get bigger every round. Cups that you then would the team that had the most currency would get to bid on as many as they want -1. They couldn't bid on all of them, obviously. And if you had your currency on the correct one, you took the pot. So it wasn't quite a shell game because you weren't watching where it was going, but you could definitely play the odds. It was definitely a good gamble. If you knew how to gamble, it was a good game. Not the most exciting finish, but you had some really good like winners out of that show despite that.
Yeah, I barely remember that show. When you brought it up, it was kind of like a dark space in my brain opened up that I didn't even remember was there.
Right.
One of the cool things about Endurance is every single season, asterisk, because I only remember the first 4 seasons, but every season opened with a challenge that 3 boys and 3 girls were eliminated off the bat. You were holding on. It was a hanging challenge every time. It was a how long can you hold on to a bar, a pole, something. And the first 3 to drop were out, and everybody else got to pick their teammate.
Oh, would not have lasted on Endurance. Well, I think that's all we have, guys. We are getting in the weeds talking about all kinds of
Sorry, I'll stop.
It's fine. It's so funny that you brought that up. But yeah, we are in the Survivor off season officially now, so that is sad. But on the bright side, we do have some Big Brother 2 rewatch coverage going on our channel. I'm sure we will be doing all kinds of crazy and hilarious brand steals over the course of the off season. And hopefully we will be back talking about Survivor 41 sooner rather than later.
Sounds great to me. I just really want to see Pascal back in another Brant Steele. If you guys haven't watched the Brant Steele that me, Luke, and Pat did, please check it out. I personally find it very funny.
Yes, it was great.
Just a little plug.
Yeah, can't wait to get JC in on the next Brand Steele because I feel like he would have a blast. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully we'll see you back for 41. Yeah, thanks for watching, and you can follow us on Twitter at SuperRealityFam. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a good